Sorry we're a little bit late, but welcome everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask that everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Eder, roll call, please. I can't see you.
Mayor Borelli.
Here.
Councilmember Clarici.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Vice Mayor Wilkins.
Here.
Okay, announcements and presentations to the public. Closed session report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight, the council did not take reportable action in closed session.
Adoption of the agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mayor Borelli.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilkins.
Aye.
Thank you. Ceremonial matters. Oath of office to new council member. The city clerk will administer the oath of office to a new council member appointed earlier this evening at the conclusion of a special city council meeting. Following the administration of the oath, the new council member will be seated on the dais. And I am extremely happy to say that our new old council member is Mark Acuna. You know the drill.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Mark Acuna,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of California
the Constitution of the State of California,
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
and that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Welcome, Mark, and please be seated. I'd like to say that we had two other candidates apply, and they were both wonderful, and we've tried to encourage them, ask them to please stay in touch, and everybody would have been great. So, okay, at this time, we are going to recognize our employee service anniversaries. The following city employees will be recognized for their combined 140 years of service to the city. Okay,
Yeah, I'll ask, as we announce it, I'm gonna ask the department heads to come up to me, and then the employees can come up also.
Sure.
Exciting.
The first one is Suzanne Pronk, 10 years of service, and she's finance. She's that smiling face that you see, and she greets you as you're coming in the door at City Hall. Next is Julianne Shackelford, 10 years of service with the police department. Thank you, Julianne. Next, we have Dorothy Evans, 10 years from Finance Department. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Hi, Dorothy. We'll give her Patricia or Patty, El Haj, 10 years of service, finance. Note she has a new last name, and congratulations on that, too. Next is Candace Bernardi, 10 years, community services. Thank you, Candace. Next we have Jim Lane, 15 years of service with community services. Thank you, Jim. Cindy Bryan, 15 years of service with the police department. Is she here tonight? Okay, well, let's give her a hand anyway. Mark Ivane, 15 years of service with engineering. That smiling face. Thank you, Mark. Kelly Segura, 15 years with finance. It's not too often I get to see her face. She's always hunkered down, doing that financial stuff and the water bills, huh? Thank you, Kelly. Christy Fernandez, 15 years, finance. Another one of those folks running around the office. And thank you so much, Christy. Frank Jacoby, 15 years, community services. Frank is not here, but thank you, Frank. Okay, at this time, I have another award. This one's for a lot more years. This goes to a very, very special lady. And this is her last city council meeting with us, but Susan, you need to come forward. 31 years with the city, and she's retiring. Always watching her. Okay, stay here. Now you got to stay here. Okay, Mr. Morris.
All right. I'm probably not the best person to do this, but I'm going to make some comments for Susan. And as you know, I've only been here 5 years compared to her 26 and a half years with the city and 31 years overall in public service. I think all with the county prior to being at the city, correct, Susan? So it is indeed an honor to have the opportunity to recognize and celebrate the achievements of our city clerk, Susan Zito. Susan has worked for the city for 26 and a half years and another 5 years of public service with the county prior to that. To give a brief example of her great service, let me give you some statistics. And I want to state that I got these from Susan, so she prepared them. And I'm not sure there's any significance to why she put this one first, but number of city managers I've worked for is 7. And she didn't list actually the number of city council members she's worked with, but I'm guessing it's probably over 20, 25, 30 in that range at least. So well deserved. Number of resolutions she has prepared since as she stated, since 1994, 2,604 resolutions. Number of agendas prepared, and I know every other week going through her with this, that's a lot of work, 581, and then the minutes to go along with those. We could also add the number of personnel recruitments, the number of documents recorded, the number of elections administered, the number of employees and other officials sworn into office, as we did tonight, the number of meetings organized, the number of complaints handled, and the list goes on and on. There's really no way to recognize all that she has accomplished. While doing all of this, she has raised 2 daughters, received both her Certified Municipal Clerk and Master Municipal Clerk awards. And if you've looked at these, they're quite extensive to be able to attain those certifications. But most of all, Susan has been a person that, from my perspective, everyone goes to for answers. At least I have, I know. Susan has an amazing memory, which is invaluable from my perspective in understanding why we do things the way we do and why we may or may not want to change what we're doing. I express my sincere appreciation to Susan for her dedicated service to the city of Placerville for the past 26 and a half years. So I have an award for Susan, but I'm going to take a minute and explain that award because there's a little bit of a story behind it. So a couple of years ago, I asked Susan about awards for long-term service employees who retired. As I mentioned above, Susan has a great memory, and she has a story to tell about everything that happens, really. She told me about the beautiful watches with the city logo on them that employees are given after, I think, generally 25 years of service. It's a men's watch, I might add. So I asked her what we do for women who retire with over 25 years of service with the city. And she told me, as I mentioned, a story. There was one person who retired, and we bought a beautiful gold chain for the person. Turns out the person was allergic to gold. So I said, well, okay. And there was another example. Let's see. Another example she gave is they looked at putting a logo on a women's watch, which was smaller, and you really couldn't see the logo. So that wasn't a good idea either. And then she gave me one more example, and I apologize because I was trying to remember what it was, of another female employee that they gave something to, and that one didn't really work out either. So all of this is coming at a time when I was trying to decide what to give as a gift for Susan. And by the way, if it wasn't for Susan retiring, I would be asking her to figure this out for me, but I couldn't do that this time. So, and I was thinking that this decision may have stressed me out more than the Clay Street roundabout.
Man, that's quite a decision.
So in conclusion, I have a gift for Susan. I would like to present with her with a plaque showing her years of dedicated service and a gift certificate that I'm providing to her so that once again, Susan, you can decide what the gift is for your years of service. Thank you, Susan.
Okay, somebody come take our picture.
It's been recorded so multiple.
How about Mr. Zito?
Amanda and I just good with pictures.
Oh, we got several of them here.
Wow. Oh, ask and you shall receive. Thank you so much.
That has to go on our Facebook page.
Okay. Now I have a proclamation declaring 2016 as the year of foster youth in the city of Placerville. The proclamation will be accepted by Pamela Hagan, Community Relations Coordinator of the El Dorado Community Foundation. So I will read it, and then Pam, I'm going to have you come forward and I'll present it to you. This is really a nice proclamation. I want everybody to listen to the wording. Whereas every child deserves a safe, loving, and nurturing place to call home to help them reach their highest potential, and whereas the family, serving as the primary source of love, identity, self-esteem, and support, is the very foundation of our communities. And whereas all young people in foster care need a meaningful connection to a caring adult who becomes a supportive and lasting presence in their lives, and whereas multiple opportunities exist to support foster children, including fostering, providing respite care, mentoring, and supervising visitation, and whereas there remains a need in El Dorado County for additional dedicated, capable foster parents to provide a safe, secure, and loving home, and whereas raising awareness of the needs of foster children and youth involves numerous individuals, public and private organization and community groups, and whereas Foster Awareness Network, in partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters of El Dorado County, El Dorado Community Foundation, El Dorado County Office of Education, Environmental Alternatives, Foster and Kinship Care Education, Folsom Lake College, Remy Vista Inc., Sierra Child and Family Services, Carl Whelan, County of El Dorado Assessor / former foster youth, CASA El Dorado, The Windfall, and concerned citizens of the County of El Dorado joined together to promote and support efforts throughout 2016 to further an awareness of the issues and needs of foster youth and foster families in the County of El Dorado. Now therefore I, Patricia Borelli, Mayor of the City of Placerville, do hereby proclaim 2016 as the Year of Foster Youth in the City of Placerville, dated December 8th, 2015.
Thank you, Mayor Borelli and council members. I am Pam Hagan, and I am at the El Dorado Community Foundation, but tonight I'm here to represent that whole community of people that you just heard about in this proclamation. Some of them are here with us, with me, and asked them to come up with me. The reason behind this proclamation is to make it a springboard for us as we go forward in 2016 and launch a huge campaign to let the entire community know that we need them to be the village to raise these kids. There are so many things that we can all do. We have the list of them in the proclamation. We have a list of them in the back. There are flyers you can take home. But because we do not have these enough homes to do what we're talking about doing, these kids need to have a safe place. They need to be nurtured. They need to feel connected. And we need your help to do that. We will be working diligently to invite the entire community to join us. We have left those flyers in the back. And we'd just like to thank you tonight for showing your support through this proclamation as we go forward, declaring 2016 as the Year of Foster Youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay, all right. All right, thanks, guys. Do we get a photo? Can we get a photo shoot? Can we get a photo shoot real quick? Okay. We'll go up, can we come up here with you?
Sure.
Stand by the seat.
Do we look official?
Sure, let's stand up behind him.
Congratulations. Thank you for all your help and work. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Brief, non-agenda items. This. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I just skipped right over it, and I was a part of this one too. I've just had too much on my mind tonight. You have to forgive me. Okay, recognition of the Reader's Choice Award for Goldbug Park. Mr. Yule.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chairman of the Goldbug Park Development Committee, Charlie Basham, and some of his loyal contingent from Goldbug Park has some great news to share with us this evening.
Thank you, Steve. Madam Mayor and Councilman, and the newest Councilman, Mr. Acuna. I'd like to introduce one of our former board members. It's going to be apparently sitting to your left is Mark Acuna. Mary Meter, who owns Placerville Newsstand. Dean Reed, who's been a volunteer at the park for 17 years. And Ken Diebert, who is a columnist for the Mountain Democrat, are on the board of directors. And it's a great group of people, and I'm proud to represent all of them tonight. We want to give a brief year-end report about our key activities and many of the accomplishments at the park in the last 12 months. But I also want to acknowledge the good work and support from the city staff. Steve Ewell, Matt Lishman, and Frank Jacoby have been absolutely a dream to work with, and we've built a great working relationship that's really turning out to benefit the park in so many different ways. I want to also acknowledge the part-time staff at the gift shop and at the museum and up at the stamp mill and the blacksmith shop. They're the front line when it comes to first impressions with the city and also with Goldbug Park, and they're very, very important. This year, more than a dozen volunteers gave thousands of hours of their time to accommodate the dozens of schools and educational tours. And we already have a full educational tour calendar for next year, for 2017. It's very, very popular. And I want to acknowledge perhaps one of our most popular volunteers, Jean Duffy. Would you please stand?
You won't recognize me without my hat.
But Gene has been an important part of the very energizing tours that we give to the students. And I want to thank him as well for this. One key accomplishment was in February, where we transferred the gift shop operations and its inventory to the city of Placerville. That was a strategic move, and it worked out very well, I think, for the city and for us. Earlier this year, we worked with the city to create an integrated communication plan, which included a change in the advertising and publicity strategy so that we could better target the ads and increase the visibility and attendance at the park. Basically, we moved from traditional advertising to predominantly social media advertising. This step involved working closely with the county director of tourism to leverage the money and the visibility with an overall campaign promoting Placerville. It worked very, very well, we think. The park's Facebook likes went from 9 to 2,000 in about 8 months.
That's great.
And Duffy has been a big part of that as well, I might add. He's been very conscientious of how we promote the park. TripAdvisor and Facebook ads created a noticeable increase in our summer attendance. The Yelp and TripAdvisor reviews and ratings have been consistently above average and even earned the park an award of merit. According to TripAdvisor, Goldbug Park is the most popular attraction out of 91 identified activities in El Dorado County. That means we're more popular than Apple Hill in all of the wineries. That's significant. Over the long Memorial Labor Day weekends, we've created special events offering priest mine tours. Combined attendance exceeded 1,600 people this year. These events have had also a positive spillover into the gift shop and into the museum and into the city overall. In October, we launched a new hiking trail that combines the local flora and historical mining activities. We also held a special event for the blacksmith shop, which has consistently grown in popularity over the last year. We built a new terrace seating section in the stamp mill to accommodate students and adults who otherwise would be standing or sitting during the presentations. Small things like that make a big difference in the long run. We recently completed plans for a new outdoor mining equipment exhibit, which will now open this next spring. We help keep our costs manageable because we're soliciting partnerships with outside businesses. For example, Mr. Veerkamp has agreed to donate his skills and his machinery to help prepare the exhibit area and dig the foundations. We recently worked with the producers of PBS series Nova. One segment featured Goldbug Mine, which happened to air just a few weeks ago. It was viewed on 350 PBS stations throughout the country. There's also a second NOVA program coming up early next year that I worked with the producers on, and I'll keep you posted as to when that comes up as well. So we're getting a lot of international recognition as well, and it's not just for the park, but it's for the unique mining structures that we have there and how the gold rush truly changed the fabric of the North American continent. We hosted an El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce mixer at the park in June. The intent was to build a stronger relationship with our local businesses and merchants. More than 100 people came by, and by all accounts, it was a huge success. We're working with Community Pride to clean up and landscape the corner of Bedford and Highway 50. We plan to complete this project by late spring so that the new plantings will be in full bloom and in full beauty by the September Gold Panning Championships. We're also working with the Gold Panning Championships team to ensure that Goldbug is a featured destination for our town. In just a couple of weeks, we've arranged to install new rain gutters on the stamp mill to keep the building dry in anticipation of El Nino. And we're working with your parks team and Growlersburg to upgrade the steps and the handrails of the Priest Mine, up to the Priest Mine. We're also working with your staff to rethink how the park interacts with its visitors. For example, we decided to open the park on Friday after Thanksgiving, which is the first time we've ever done that, and it was a huge success. We did this to accommodate the many out-of-town visitors who have family members coming to the area, and it's something for them to do. So it gives them a chance to also share their local community activities. And finally, and this is why I'm really here today, is to share with you an award the park recently received from the readers of the Mountain Democrat. Goldbug Park was voted to be the best local attraction for 2015. This is important in that all of our work in the park is being acknowledged by the people of Placerville. And I'd like to give this to Steve Yule if I could.
Well, Charlie, thank you so much. I think I've shared with the folks that I recently went with our local chapter, People to People, to Japan, and it's a custom that we bring gifts. As you can see by the kimono in the back on the wall, there is one of the gifts that our sister city gave to us one time. So I was trying to think of something that was a little different, and so I had the thought that after visiting up at Goldbug and talking to the guys, to have the blacksmiths make something just for me to take over. So they did. They made what is called a courting candle, and it has a little story with it that I'm going to read to you. And and then Charlie, we went through the process of me observing this candle being made, and so we took pictures, and I made a little album and took that with us, and so then we made the presentation to our sister city, and I also took flyers of Goldbug Park. So I have to tell you, it is international. You are now in Japan, and everybody that from there, when they come over here, you betcha they're going to visit Goldbug Park.
Terrific.
So, but I want to read this cute little story, and I have to tell you that it was, that we had to have it transferred
Translated,
into
yeah.
Japanese, and it got quite a laugh. So they understood it, and I'm going to just read it. It's real quick. So, okay, the courting candle is a fascinating legend in American history. It harkens back to a simpler time where, in the Old West, a father's judgment was always considered to be right. A courting candle was used by the father to set dating boundaries for his daughter. When a young man came calling on the young lady, the father would light the candle, which served as a timer for the evening. When the candle burned down to the metal at the top of the holder, it was time for the boy to leave. However, by turning the lever on the spiral holder, the father could change the height of the candle based on how he felt about the young man. If the father liked the man, the candle was moved up so it could burn longer. Or if he wanted the boy to leave sooner, the candle length was shortened. The father could also immediately snuff out the candle or add a second candle depending on what he deemed necessary. So I have some pictures that I'm going to put back there. You guys can look at them of what we went through this process. But Charlie, again, I thank you and the folks up there. And I don't know, anybody who hasn't been up there is doing a disservice to themselves, because that little Goldbug Park is just wonderful. And I'm so happy that you're getting these awards, because you deserve every one.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Okay, now we'll go to public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. State law prohibits the council from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the city council under specified circumstances. The mayor reserves the right to limit the speaker's time to 3 minutes. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name for the record. You are not allowed to make personal slanders, personal attacks on individuals, or make comments which are slanderous or which may invade an individual's personal privacy. Please give any written material presented at the meeting to the city clerk for public record. First of all, do we have any written communication?
No, not tonight.
Okay, I'll open it up then for oral communication. Anyone wishing to speak to the council on any items that are not on the agenda, please come forward. Okay, seeing no one, I'll bring it back to council. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of the full text of all resolutions will be waived unless a council member requests otherwise. Anyone have any?
I just have a comment on an item, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
I would just like to comment on item 8.6 that I appreciate that we will have a third-party firm looking at the Johnson Control proposal for step 2 and the refunding of the wastewater bonds. A second opinion and an unbiased analysis is just good business, and I appreciate that step we're taking tonight.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, with that, do I have a motion?
I'll move the, well, give that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Would anyone from the public care to come and comment on any of the items on the agenda? I mean, on the consent calendar. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council now.
I move for approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Madam
Roll-
Mayor,
Yes.
I'll refrain from approval of the minutes, 8.1.
Oh, okay. Okay. Roll call, please.
Mayor Borelli?
Aye.
Excuse me, Councilmember Acuna.
Aye.
Mayor Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilkins?
Aye.
Okay, items pulled from consent calendar, we have none. Ordinances. 10.1, second reading of an ordinance amending Title 5, Chapter 25 of the City Municipal Code relating to medical marijuana. Waives the second reading of said ordinance and adopts said ordinance. Mr. Morris.
Madam
Oh,
Mayor,
Mr. Driscoll.
I'll go ahead and take a shot at it. This is on for the second reading and adoption of the ordinance which was introduced at the last council meeting, which would prohibit medical marijuana dispensaries, cultivation, and delivery of medical marijuana in the city of Placerville. Rather than repeat everything that we did last week, I will simply say that this is in response to the 3 legislative enactments dealing with medical marijuana, and in particular the need to have in place ordinances either regulating or banning the delivery and cultivation of medical marijuana by March 1st of next year. And if jurisdictions don't have those in place, then they're going to be locked into whatever the state regulations are with respect to cultivation in particular. The adoption of this ordinance will give the city the option, if at some point in time it desires to change its ban and allow medical marijuana in some fashion, to create regulations which perhaps better suit its needs at that time than what the state will be dictating with regard to their regulations. So it keeps the options open for the city, and that's why staff is bringing this thing forward. I can also add that I believe next week at the Planning Commission, a complementary land use ordinance will be presented to the Planning Commission for their recommendation to the council for adoption in the future. So we're moving on both prongs.
Discussion. Any comments? Okay. Anyone from the audience care to come forward and speak on this issue?
Madam Mayor, members of council, Kirk Smith, I have no interest in the subject one way or another, but there's two questions that came to mind. One is when I read the report the last time, it talked about a tax on the sales, and it was about 4 cents, something like that kind. And here you've described the city's in short supply of money when it comes to road construction, things of that kind. So the question was, how much money did you make before with this first operation? Is there any analysis about how much money you could make if it were to be operated now? And the other matter I wanted to raise is, when I read that report that's attached to the agenda, it looked like a script out of a Cheech and Chong movie. I mean, there's a bunch of stoners who couldn't get anything right. When it came to enforcement issues, they couldn't get a list of who their employees were, an account of monies, things like that. I mean, couldn't you send them a Steve Calfee letter that says, shape up or we're going to confiscate your property?
That's why it was closed.
Yeah, but couldn't you, what did you do to enforce it?
I'm sorry?
What was done to enforce it to make sure that those things didn't happen?
Thank you. Anyone else?
Steve No, Placerville. I think this is the right move to maintain our rights as a city to control our own destiny. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to council.
I move that we waive the second reading of an ordinance amending Title V, Chapter 25 of the City Municipal Code relating to medical marijuana and adopt said ordinance.
Second?
Do I need a roll call? Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Acuna,
Aye.
Mayor Borelli,
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilkins.
Aye.
Okay, next, we have no public hearings scheduled. Discussion action items. Consider approving a letter of support and co-sponsorship of H.R. 2755, the Remote Transactions Parity Act of 2015, and authorizing the mayor to execute the same. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Your sales tax auditor, HDL, has urged the city to send a letter of support and co-sponsorship of House of Representatives Bill 2775, the Remote Transactions Parity Act of 2015. If approved by Congress, this bill would require remote sellers to collect and remit use tax with respect to remote sales sourced in such states. Remote sellers are those that make online sales in states without a physical presence there. Currently, most remote sellers do not collect and report sales and use tax, which gives them an unfair advantage over their brick and mortar competitors. The bill includes a 3-year phase-in for small businesses. For example, the first year, businesses with annual gross revenues under 10 million would be exempt the first year. The second year, businesses with 5 million in gross revenues would be exempt. And the third year, 1 million would be exempt. The bill has been referred to the Subcommittee on Regulatory Reform, Commercial and Antitrust Law. The National League of Cities has estimated that California is losing over $4 billion annually in uncollected e-commerce related sales tax. As you know, sales tax is the primary source of revenue for the city, making up 54% of your general fund. If this bill were approved by Congress, the city would receive additional sales and use taxes in the future. However, the exact amount is unknown at this time. If the bill is approved by Congress, staff would work with HDL in forecasting the additional sales and use tax revenues. With that, we ask that the council consider approving the letter of support and co-sponsorship of H.R. 2775 that's in your agenda packet tonight and authorize the mayor to sign that letter.
Okay, comments from commissioners?
I have a couple, I have a couple of questions. One is, and you sort of answered it, but you mentioned that I think they estimated the state is losing about $4 billion.
Correct.
Is there any way to sort of extrapolate a number for our fair city here based on that $4 billion? Is it like 0.000% or whatever?
You know, honestly, I can't give you a good estimate
Okay.
because it
Because
really
nobody
depends.
reports it, so the
Well,
sales.
but, I mean, I'm just saying, you know, typically there, you know, the state generates however much money it generates in sales tax every year, and we get this much money, you know, so you could at least do a back of the envelope, like, we're missing out on $100 or whatever it would be.
Yeah, the information's pretty rough because there's so many
I
unknowns.
I understand.
But as if this bill progresses, HDL will most likely come out with more information and
Okay.
tools for us to estimate what that is. I'd be happy to share that with the council at that time.
I understand the need to shelter what would be considered a small business, you know, from some early on, the kind of the task of having to collect the information might be difficult for someone. Is a $10 million sales business how big is a business that gets $10 million? Because I don't know.
It really depends on the type of business. I mean,
Well-
if they're selling 10 widgets, that's, you know.
Well,
very
like in
expensive.
our county.
Okay, yeah,
I
in
mean,
our
As far
county.
as-
Like, say, I mean, the car dealerships or the lumber
Yeah.
company or,
How many businesses in Placerville generate $10 million of sales? About. I won't hold you.
Less than 10.
Okay, so it's a fairly low bar, in the sense that
Yeah, keep
it
in
will
mind,
capture, yes.
keep in mind, a lot of these businesses aren't even in the state of California.
Oh, no, I understand
Yeah.
that, but I'm just saying, I wanted to get an idea of the order of magnitude when you say
Right.
it's a $10 million business as opposed to a $5 million business. So this would capture like it would exempt a lot of people, I guess, except for very large businesses that generate sales tax.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I've long been a support of this concept. And the question I have, David, maybe I missed it somewhere in the language, but where does the sales tax revenue go in this proposal? Does it go to the state where we reside, or is it funneled down through a process to the point of purchase, the cities and counties, the sale of
Yeah,
point
good
of origin?
question. My understanding is we're currently getting 1 percentage point of sales tax and use tax of the entire 7.5% that's currently being collected across the
Right.
state. So we would receive 1 percentage point of the sales tax, most likely 7.5% here in California. As far as your Measure H and your Measure J, we would not receive anything unless, and again, it depends on the law, it was somebody in the city of Placerville that's actually making the purchase, if you will. Now, use tax, this is where it gets a little convoluted, is some sales come into the state and it's not completely clear which county it applies to.
Okay.
It can come into the county and it's not completely clear in which city or unincorporated area it came from. So there's the state pool and the county pool. So some of these sales would actually enter the pools and we would share in that proportionally based on our overall sales tax.
Okay, so it's not just, if we shop online, we get a percentage of that. We're also benefiting from the entire,
That's correct.
State.
All Californians shopping online would help shore up our sales tax as well.
okay, all right, thank you.
Mark or Tricia? Well, you know, here's another way to look at it too. I remember reading in the Mountain Democrat an article when a lady went out of business, and one of the things that she mentioned is that people would come in her store and, in her case, try on shoes, and then they would find out the brand and the size, and then they would go home and order it offline. And I think that goes on a lot. I've heard of a lot of people doing that. So in a roundabout way, it will help our local businesses and to keep people, in other words, they'll come here, they'll try it on and buy it there because they can get it at the same price. I mean, it's just kind of
It doesn't have to do with price, though.
It is with due to price, because they could go home and order it online and then get it cheaper. That was what she, at least, so that was her point. And so that's what I'm kind of relating, so. Anyway, I have been in favor of us this tax for a long time. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, I'm gonna ask if anyone in the audience would like to come forward and, any comments, questions on this item?
Carl Hagan, City of Placerville. It would be a good idea to support this type of legislation. There is some legislation in place now, and in some items, when you purchase them from out-of-state vendors online, they do charge the local sales tax based on your address and where you are. They're usually large items. And then for a few years, as a business owner, I would get a letter once a year from the not the franchise tax board, the State Board of Equalization, regarding what we'd spent on items that we purchased on the internet with an estimate, and then how much we had to pay in sales tax, and at that point you had to report it. I try not to purchase things online. I try to buy them locally. But the large items like the Dell computer, which were coming from Texas, you paid the sales tax on those. So there's already some legislation in place, but I'm sure it's the, I know Amazon fought it for quite a while,
Right.
but the reality is we as local citizens still need to participate in our local government in some form to help support us. So I think that it's something we should be doing, and it's a good idea to at least support it in the federal legislation. Regardless, a $10 million business is pretty big, but it relates to the number of customers that purchase stuff in our zip code and in our addresses, and they're delivered locally. That's how the tax, my understanding, would be charged. So anyway.
Thank you, Carl. Anyone else? Comments? Okay, I'll bring it back to council.
I move that we approve a letter of support and co-sponsorship of H.R. 2775, the Remote Transactions Parity Act of 2015, and authorize mayor to execute the same.
Second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Acuna,
Aye.
Mayor Borelli,
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilkins.
Aye.
Okay, adopt a resolution adopting a consulting services agreement with Drake Hagelin and Associates in the amount not to exceed $749,450 for engineering design services, NEPA compliance, and bid document preparation for the Clay Street realignment and bridge replacement project, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same, and authorizing city staff to issue a partial notice to proceed to Drake Hagelin and Associates for engineering in the amount not to exceed $59,000. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor Borelli, members of the council. Just wanted to kind of touch bases with you on the history of the project. We're all pretty familiar with it. As a result of removing the roundabout feature for the Clay Street realignment project on January 27, 2015, the council directed staff to proceed with the design of a four-way stop-controlled intersection at Main Street, Cedar Ravine, and Clay Street. And then subsequently on May 12, 2015, council also authorized staff to pursue requests for proposals for consulting services agreement to complete the NEPA environmental documents and the final design of the project to get us to construction. On August 27, 2015, city staff issued a request for proposals and received 4 proposals from qualified local consulting firms. And after the interview panel reviewed each proposal and conducted in-person interviews and checked references, the panel concluded that Drake Hagelin and Associates demonstrated the best project understanding and relevant experience. Drake Hagelin's proposal included scope and a negotiated fee for preliminary engineering, NEPA documentation, final design, right-of-way engineering, bid documents, and construction support. The negotiated fee exceeds the remaining amount of the programmed HBP funding for environmental design and right-of-way services. However, city staff has been in contact with Caltrans HBP oversight, and with their expressed support, will be pursuing a scope augmentation to cover the Drake Hagelin contract that will perform the work necessary to get the project to construction. However, in the interim, staff is requesting authorization to issue a partial notice to proceed in an amount of $59,000 to Drake Haglund to re-engage the NEPA compliance process and resume public outreach efforts for the project in advance of the scope augmentation approval. Approval by council of tonight's recommended actions will allow the project to stay on schedule with the environmental phase funding deadline as explained in staff's report. As such, staff recommends adopting a resolution approving a consulting services agreement with Drake Haglund and Associates in an amount not to exceed $749,450 for engineering, design services, NEPA compliance, and bid document preparation for the Clay Street realignment and bridge replacement project, capital improvement project number 40617, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same, and authorizing city staff to issue a partial notice to proceed to Drake Haglund and Associates in the amount not to exceed $59,000. This concludes staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, comments from staff? Wendy?
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that staff report here. Let's see. My question is, part of Drake Haglund's work is to be re-engaging public outreach. And so can you talk a little bit about what that will include?
Absolutely, I'm happy to. One of the big challenges with the Clay Street project is really getting everybody notified and adequately engaged into the collaborative effort that will ultimately allow the project to move forward. We have already scheduled a public outreach kickoff meeting, which is scheduled for January 6th. It will be here at Town Hall. And basically, it's just kind of giving everybody a refresher on the project without the roundabout, that we are moving forward with, you know, the proposal of the project and the replacement of the bridge as approved through HBP.
Okay, excellent. Look forward to that. That's fabulous. And then I guess my last question at this time is, you've identified in the staff report the budget appropriations on this project so far. So, you know, we began with Quincy Engineering. Is that work, are we able to build on that, or is that just kind of wasted? You know, do we have to scrap it and just start over on that, or?
We are not scrapping and starting over with what we have. We do have some good work. There was some key elements missing in working with the previous consultant that we strongly felt needed to be included. Of those items, it did include a strong public outreach component. You know, obviously this being such a sensitive project for the city, we certainly want to do right by the public and get them engaged, get their input, and continue on with the process as it should be. And a few other items that weren't included previously were accounting for the culvert as it comes into the abutment at the bridge. That is a big piece. Huge. That is the old platform that was on the old Sanborn maps in 1890s. It is a very awesome thing to have. It's a very awesome thing to incorporate into the bridge. When the bridge was built, they did incorporate it, but it is an old bridge, and so we certainly want to address the appropriate respect to it structurally. And then this contract does include bid support for when we issued the documents out for public bidding, as well as construction support. And it also does include adequate support to the technical studies contained within the NEPA compliance.
Great. That's a helpful explanation. Thank you so much.
Sure.
That was my question too, Wendy. I'm glad you, no, I'm glad, that was what I was gonna ask, if there was no waste. In other words, I wanted to make sure that it was gonna be carried. What we have spent is we're still gonna derive.
We are building on what we have.
Okay, good. John?
Yeah. About what time frame are we having? When possibly could we see, for example, a draft document on the environmental?
I think we had a schedule in the staff report. NEPA documents and public outreach will commence starting, actually, we've kind of already started.
Well, right.
Very
right.
excited.
Yeah.
It's this month, and we should have a draft document, I think it was March, and then finalizing that and public outreach around July of next year. Mm-hmm. So we're aggressively but realistically pursuing it.
Okay,
Madam Mayor, question?
Yes.
Rebecca, thank you for the excellent report and the enthusiastic use of all of the past work. When do you think we would start to put together some conceptual design drawings so the public would be able to understand where we're heading for a final look of this project, the bridge and the intersection itself?
As far as engaging aesthetic components of the bridge, that is something that we're going to work with the design team on. The public meeting that is scheduled in January is an initial kickoff, basically kind of reminding the overall project, the alternatives, et cetera, and how we are planning on proceeding to move forward now that the original selected alternative of the roundabout has been removed. As far as aesthetics, I believe that would be the subsequent public meeting.
So March, April?
Yes.
Okay. So
Possibly,
this is,
possibly even a little sooner than that.
okay, very fast track then.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone from the audience care to come forward with a comment or question?
Thank you, Rebecca. You answered my question as to whether all was lost from previous efforts.
We all had that same question.
However, Susan Rodman, I'm a longtime resident of Placerville. I remember when this, the most recent started, not in '74, but a few years ago. And I think this current iteration is somewhat improved to respond to Placerville's financial responsibility to our residents and to the public input we've received. However, I do have some ongoing concerns with the project. Cedar Ravine Creek must be addressed for connected and cumulative impacts as part of this project. It has been ignored and brushed off previously, and that cannot continue for NEPA analysis to be adequate. Cedar Ravine Creek flows in a tunnel culvert underneath Clay Street to its confluence with Hangtown Creek at the Clay Street Bridge. The existing bridge accommodates this confluence, but previous project proposals have failed to address that confluence or the impacts of the project to it. That tunnel culvert for Cedar Ravine Creek underneath Clay Street has similar construction to the Esmeralda Tunnel with hand-stacked stone and wooden mine timbers for the ceiling. So you've got hand-stacked stone walls and mine timbers for a ceiling. The recently collapsed Esmeralda Tunnel, which is costing EID considerable capital to fix, is very similar construction. So this project needs to address this tunnel culvert, and preferably before it follows the example of the Esmeralda Tunnel. Don't know how close in age those are, but similar construction says may be fairly close in age, so you may have the same problems. The Clay Street and the Ivy House parking area above that Cedar Ravine Creek are seriously deteriorating, which I believe indicate that the underlying tunnel culvert may not be structurally sound, as well as the lack of maintenance in that area. It's interesting to note that the worst part of both the street and the parking area overlay the path of Cedar Ravine Creek, so it overlays that tunnel culvert. Again, the Esmeralda Tunnel was not considered in imminent danger of collapse and had been inspected not too long before its collapse, if my information is correct. How long since Cedar Ravine Creek tunnel culvert structure was evaluated for whether it has structural integrity? And my final comment is, I'm not sure there's a need for Clay Street to intersect with Main at Cedar Ravine. Locust Street intersects with Main only 1 block east of Clay Street. It's a safer intersection for turning in either direction and has less congestion. A viable alternative that has never been addressed has been to close Clay Street to vehicles and divert vehicle traffic to Locust Street. The proposal is not clearly defined in the staff report. There's a good history given for the project origin and includes all the financing, but the failure of the previous CEQA analysis is not clearly documented, as well as the public outrage generated by the original proposal. And I hope the city plans to improve both the public outreach and response to the public input this time. Placerville has a responsibility to protect Cedar Ravine Creek as well as Hangtown Creek. This includes environmental impacts and 100-year flow accommodation responsibilities for both watersheds from this project. We need to be sure that all requirements for connected and cumulative impacts to all of the affected resources are not lost or forgotten this time.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Kirk Smith of Placerville. This is not one of the shining moments for the city. Tonight, with your vote, you will have totaled up millions for this one project. You battled the public for 8 years, seeking to push down our throats a project nobody wanted, couldn't afford, and didn't need. You kept hearing that at public meetings. This room would be packed with people who'd say that. A number of you would acknowledge you heard on the street. People said they didn't want it. You could have done an opinion poll for free. You spent almost $14,000 on Measure I to find out how you could market the tax proposal. You could have added one question, which is, do you want the roundabout? Normally in business, you do a study and then make a decision. Here you're making a decision and then you're going to do outreach. You did outreach before. You can go out this door at 4 o'clock in the afternoon any day of the week and see traffic back to back going out Bedford Avenue to hit the freeway. Why would you want to encourage more of that and somehow think that you're going to streamline traffic? You're not, you're only adding to it. On the weekend during Apple Hill, the traffic was bumper to bumper right up to Broadway because people got off the freeway thinking, great, we'll avoid the bumper to bumper traffic, but then they ran into more of the same. You have a bridge down on Placerville Drive that needs replacement. That's not an historic district. It's of the same era. It's needed for development. That would make sense. But you have in your report that you spent $600,000+. It's short. There's a number of other monies that you did spend, like $200,000 for litigation, that people told you over and over that you had environmental problems with the law. And yet you still went forward, so it cost you $125,000 of your own fees, $67,000 you paid for the petitioner. And then tonight you got $750,000. And then again you got community outreach. It should be the other way around. I have an old journal from the 1850s. Someone's describing Main Street, although they didn't say it. They just said Placerville consisted of this street in the center that goes zigzag up, is the word they used. That zigzag is part of our history, and that's part of the way we should do it. Why you've done this, as I try to sell people, is because you get grant money. But when you've gone to Washington, have you gotten anything besides grip and grin pictures with Tom McClintock? Did anybody ask our representative to talk to Chairman Schuster and ask him to have his staff draft amendments for those grant monies to be used in historic districts in different ways, because it is our money? No. So this is really tragic, and it's sad to see, because it's just another example where didn't listen to the public. May say you didn't, that you did, but you know, look at last year. You lost Measure K big time.
Okay.
Because the public didn't want it.
Thank you, Kirk.
Jackie No, City of Placerville. Just like to remind the council, each of us speak for ourselves. We don't speak for the public. And I personally am really excited about this project finally moving forward. As a bicyclist, I can tell you it is going to be so much safer for us getting on and off that trail with this street realigned. Right now, we have to sit as a bicyclist trying to make a left waiting for traffic, cars coming behind us, Clay Street traffic barely seeing us as they're trying to make their left turn. I've almost been hit twice at that particular intersection. And so I'm really looking for the safety factor that this is going to bring forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Good evening, Marion Washburn, Azalea Lane, Placerville. First of all, congratulations to our newest council member. You look very comfortable in that seat.
This is where it all started.
I think I remember that far back. And congratulations to Susan. Susan, I cannot fathom the city going on without you. This is almost unthinkable. But
It may not go. We don't know yet.
but I do hope you enjoy your retirement. You certainly have earned it if anybody has. So much enjoyment in the future, which is not why I came to speak, obviously. I came to endorse, probably in a general way, the project that I've endorsed before, the Clay Street rebuilding. And I think the public loses track of what happens because the history goes back so far. I lose track having participated in segments of it. But as your staff report says, it stems from the need in 1974, which is, if I calculate right, about 20 years ago. It was recognized as a dire need that needed to be addressed. And that need kept being recognized over the years, to the extent that when Cottonwood subdivision was built, that those units built in the Cottonwood subdivision contributed money towards the bridge replacement. That, I think that shows that 20 years ago, or 15 years ago, whatever that was built, that it was recognized as it had to happen because of the increasing traffic. And that is the point that I would like to bring up tonight. The bridge, when it was built, was clearly built for a different set of circumstances that we have in place today. It was built for smaller cars, very infrequent, and as I'm sure all of you have noticed, there's a large number of cars at this point. I think the prosperity and the popularity both of Placerville has just almost exponentially increased the volume of users in that stretch. And I know this since I live about a block and a half from that area, and I use it multiple times a day. But let me tell you what I see recently. Because of the new restaurants and busyness down there, now delivery trucks park in the lane of traffic. So if you are southbound on Clay, heading for Main Street, the only way, other than putting your car in reverse and going all the way back up to the crest of Clay, in other words, if you're going to proceed south into Main Street, you have to go into the opposing lane of traffic concealed by a delivery truck, so that when other cars are turning on to Clay from Main, nose to nose. And in that mix, there are the pedestrians who don't really realize it's a traffic way because there is no elevated sidewalk. It's the same level. So they're stepping out in front of the cars that cannot see beyond the delivery truck. So what I'm saying is just that the uses in today's world are far more intense than when that was built. And it seems to me with good planning that historic towns can certainly accommodate the uses of today's life, that we can make it an attractive and useful structure. And I think we should, for the safety of everyone who's in that channel. Again, congratulations.
Thank you, Marianne.
Hi, Steve No, Placerville. Seems like we were here a couple of years ago, almost the same people, same time. So I'd like to give my support to the project. Got a couple of questions for staff. One thing is when we had the roundabout in the mix, part of that money came from a grant, and part of it, the plan was to replace the sewer system underneath that section. Is that still part of the process and the plan? And again, to stress what my wife said earlier, is that we each speak only for our individual selves unless you represent a group, and then you should state so. Mr. Smith does not speak for me. So just want to make that very clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else?
Carl Hagan, City of Placerville, both a resident and a business owner. And the requirement for the changing or widening of the bridge and then the restructuring of the bridge occurred during the Cottonwood subdivision requirements, long before I came on the city council. Someone says part of this stuff in '74, which is over 36 years ago, they've been looking at this particular thing. My understanding was the lawsuit was about a roundabout, not about an intersection, not about a bridge. And I believe that the requirement for a new EIR was also what that judge said. Didn't say don't build anything, didn't say don't. The bridge is definitely substandard and not safe. If Mr. Smith or a group of others think we should discontinue the bridge, I would be glad if they took on the liability for operating that bridge. The other alternative, I guess, would be to shut it down completely, and then you have an issue with fire access to the other side of the freeway. Clay Street does provide access to the other side of the freeway for local residents, those that live up there, and those that come around there and do know ways around traffic at the Apple Hill season and Christmas tree season. I think it's great that we have those businesses that impact us. We've been doing a lot of work over the last few years, thanks to Brian Veerkamp and the Transportation Committee, on traffic like Apple Hill, so that we can let people that desire to pass through town more rapidly and quickly. And they've done some changing in the metering and so forth, and there have been some more hearings this past year regarding that, and I think that's something we need to keep up. I think we really need to move forward with the engineering on this, move forward with the NEPA, and make sure that we are able to use these HPP funds. By the way, Mr. Smith, trips to DC in my tenure on this council brought back somewhere between $6 and $8 million in different road factors, not counting funds that were also generated that came back to county projects. They were mostly highway projects, not this bridge project. So, and I didn't just shake hands with Mr. McClintock when I was back there. I met with several congressmen in different areas and both of our state senators on transportation issues that not only counted the city of Placerville, but the county of El Dorado. And if you'd like to check those records, you're welcome to check with the Transportation Commission.
Thank you, Carl.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Cindy Savage. I'm a local resident in Placerville, have been for the past 10 years. And I just wanted to say that I'm excited that we can get this accomplished. I'd like to see us move ahead. I'd like to see us get good participation from the city, from residents here, and move ahead. And, you know, of course, you know, because I spoke, I was disappointed that the roundabout didn't happen. But actually, I have to tell you, it really did happen, because I stand out there at the intersection and everybody just kind of rolls past unless they have to stop because there's traffic. So I would say, let's get this taken care of and let's move on. Let's make a safe place for pedestrians and to get our motorists through town. And also, the nice thing about going on with that now is prices are only rising. The estimated cost of this project when Cottonwood happened and that money came into the coffers is nowhere near what it costs now. And it's sort of embarrassing that it has taken us this long to get this far. So I'd like to see us with smiles on our face, move ahead and do it in a right way where the whole community gets an input and we can make a beautiful Clay Street Bridge and make it something that our city is proud of. So thank you guys for doing that for us.
Thank you, Cindy.
City Council and staff. Mickey Kaiserman, I'm a resident of Placerville. I have a question. Does this analysis take into consideration the traffic flow at Pacific Street and Cedar Ravine in this whole alignment? Thank you.
We'll ask. Anyone else? Okay, seeing No one? I'll bring it back to council. And Mr. Morris, you're looking at me. Are you going to answer the questions?
I'll make a couple of them, and I'll let Rebecca add to that too. I just wanted to comment on, first on Sue Rodman's comment about the Cedar Ravine Creek. We are very aware of that. We have had discussions about that and where it enters in, and that will be part of the scope of what we're looking at. And then Mr. Smith's comments about, I believe as I heard what he said, increased traffic. It's still the same 4 roads coming into there. What I see we're doing is making it safer for that traffic to move through that area. I don't see where we're increasing in traffic. There was an argument before that the roundabout perhaps moved traffic through the intersection more quickly than it does now, which is probably true. It would have moved more smoothly on a daily basis. However, I don't believe that a 4-way stop will move the traffic through more quickly. It'll actually slow it down, and therefore should make less congestion at Bedford Street, as you've referred to. So, and I'll let Rebecca talk to the most recent about traffic on Pacific Street. I believe that is part of the traffic study that will be part of the.
Also, the question about the sewer line replacement.
Yes, the traffic analysis will include the flow at Pacific Street and Cedar Ravine. And then regarding the sewer line, it is something that we are going to envelop into the project. It's something that needs to be addressed regardless. So with the design team, we're going to look at the condition of the sewer line and replacement as needed. If we're going to bother to mess with the road, we always want to address the utilities below first.
Right. Okay.
Madam Mayor, question for Rebecca. I too am aware of the Cedar Ravine. We'll call it a box culvert, I guess, for the lack of other things.
It's called a platform, if you really want to know what it was called.
Is that what they call
In
it?
1891, it was a platform. That's what they called it.
I remember probably 30 years ago, a truck made the corner there at Intercounty Title and wound up breaking through the sidewalk, and to the amazement of some folks that maybe hadn't lived in a long time, they lived here very well, realized that there was a creek down there. So I'm very much aware of that creek, and also the amount of water that it's responsible for draining out of that south end of town, and the impact that it has when it doesn't work. So do you have any idea the last time we had anyone down there to actually do an inspection on that facility?
Well, officially, City Engineer Stong was in that culvert personally. So we have looked at it. We do have records of the existing construction. As far as a thorough conditional analysis, not just of the structural integrity of the culvert, but also of the hydraulics associated with that. The hydraulics are going to be, they're included as part of the design work with the contract with Drake Hagelin. They do have a sub on staff to take care of that. And then as far as evaluating the structural integrity of the culvert, we're going to LIDAR, which is basically electronically survey the entire culvert to kind of get us an idea of what condition everything is in and what, if anything, actually has to be done. Obviously, certainly we don't want to waste any public money, but if there's something that needs to be addressed, absolutely, we will look at it.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
John, are you waving to me, or are you?
Actually, I would like to say something.
All right.
Okay. Frequently these discussions are always kind of a what are you going to lose sort of thing. We're going to lose a piece of our town. There's always going to be something out there. There's no doubt that if we proceed with this project, because there's still a number of things that have to happen before it gets the go-ahead, a number of things could make it stop. And so we're going to proceed in a thoughtful way. But it's funny, Rebecca and I were talking, this was a little while ago, and she was very excited because she had gotten some conceptual plans about the platform that actually kind of indicated that maybe we could do something to it that would actually, right now, unless you know it's there, you don't know it's there. And it could actually daylight some of that and actually make it something that is added out of this project, a piece of our history that's actually revealed, which would be really interesting. To my personal feelings about that. The other thing, too, is I've had some interesting conversations, chatted with some folks about this, with the Druids and their monument. And even though it belongs to the city, they gave it to us, and they freely admit that. You know, there is an active Druid group down in Sacramento and down in the valley. Frederick Sieg was the founder of Druidism in California. He's actually rather famous in Druidity and Druid history. And they have some thoughts about that particular monument. And when I told them that when they were doing their ceremony last year, I ran into them and we talked. They had some, and I told them that there might be something happening with this intersection. They were very excited about maybe having something where it could be better explained, where people could approach it easier, that they could actually go and look at it and find out about Frederick Sieg and Druidism, and it's a service group now, and all of that. So there's a lot of really interesting historical
So they
components.
weren't against moving it over to the
Well,
side?
yeah, we didn't. We talked about all sorts of possibilities, and I said, I said there's a lot of folks in town that are very interested in keeping it right where it is, and we're not going to ignore that. But I'm just saying there were a lot of possibilities out there, and they were very excited to be part of that. And I'm hoping to sort of bring them into the mix. They're actually going to have a big celebration next May. So as that gets closer, I'll introduce you to all my new Druid friends in the valley, and they're quite a group. They're gonna rent the Oddfellows Hall. Little side note, I'm sorry. I actually, for the first time ever, and I've lived in this town for going on 40 years now, I was actually on the spring-loaded floor.
You are kidding, that's the first time?
First time I've ever been up in that
Pretty cool
building.
floor.
That is the coolest
It
thing
is cool.
ever. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Everybody should go and jump up and down on that floor.
Oh, it is the coolest thing ever, yeah.
We used to have great dances there.
I bet.
Sounds like you might have needed a courting candle.
Okay.
Just a
Wendy.
brief comment.
Yes.
I would just like to thank our staff for moving this project forward in such a thoughtful, thorough, proactive response based on the history of this project, where we've been, what we've learned, and taking into account our community, and moving it forward in such a fresh, thoughtful way. And look forward to this new improved process. And I think we will all have a better project for the rather painful process that we've all been through, but really looking forward to looking at this in a fresh way, and I commend you for your work on this. So,
I have just a quick comment.
Okay.
I appreciate Cindy Savage's remarks about the rising construction costs. That's a really good point that we need to think about, especially with the 10-year deadline approaching. Now is the time for us to be responsible and move forward with DHA. Also, what I'm hearing that is good. It sounds like they're going to provide more outreach that I think people are asking for, and that we can be confident that they're going to get what they need with that by approving DHA.
That's it?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? We've all said something?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a resolution per staff's recommendation.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Acuna.
Aye.
Mayor Borelli.
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wilkins.
Aye.
Okay, council reports from other agency meetings. El Dorado County Transit Authority. Councilmember Wilkins.
We had a very brief meeting last week. It was
10 minutes?
Yeah, it was 10 minutes. So nothing much to report there. Thank you.
El Dorado County Transportation Commission.
I actually have a lot to report. In fact, I'd like people not to leave yet. Carl, Mickey, Cindy, don't leave yet. This, I just have to say that we had just a very, very unique opportunity last week. That the El Dorado County Transportation Commission had been approached by Assemblyman Frazier's office, who is Assemblyman in our state, and he is, what's most exciting about this is that he is the head of the Transportation Committee, and he has been tasked with helping California solve our transportation crisis. And unlike other representatives, he is doing a boots on the ground, thorough research of what is facing our cities and counties in the state of California. And he actually his office called the El Dorado County Transportation Commission and said, can we come up and see what you're facing? And so Sharon Schertzinger, who's the executive director, who's just fabulous, worked with Mindy Jackson of El Dorado Transit, and as the chairman and vice chair, Brian Veerkamp and I, got to represent the city and county on this bus tour, along with our city manager and our city engineer, and as well as high people in El Dorado County, and also his chief consultant to the transportation committee was there, and she was fabulous.
Janet.
Janet, yes, and she is tasked with helping with legislation. And we spent all day with them. We started in El Dorado Hills and went through the different transportation projects down there. We looked at the transit, lack of transit facilities and what they're doing that's creative response to that. We went to Cameron Park. We went out to Coloma and to look at all the bridges and the projects out there. We came into the city of Placerville. We had lunch downtown, and that's where my other commission members joined us for lunch, and had an in-depth one-on-one discussion with them. We walked down Main Street. They took a hard look at what our city streets are. We talked about the lack of funding we have for not only our streets, but our infrastructure. And then we went up to the Camino Safety Project, up to Camino Apple Hill, and talked about the impact that tourism has on our city and what that means for our economy. And what was just an amazing takeaway for that day is both Janet and Assemblyman Frazier, they understood the rural challenges that we have here. And basically they said, we want to be your partner, going forward, and we expect you to use us. We expect you to, continue. You now have a relationship with us at the state level, and so use us, and that's a door that we haven't had opened in such a vibrant way. So that was just a really exciting takeaway, and really appreciated our staff for, presenting the nuts and bolts of what we're dealing with in town. So, we're all working really hard to figure this out together, and I look forward to the community joining with us this next year to solve this problem this year, because we do not have time to waste. And we're on the forefront of doing everything we possibly can to get every tool in our toolbox to help us solve our transportation issue this year. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can they leave now?
You can go home, Carl. I want to tell you something else.
Sit back down.
I have a LAFCO report, and they're really excited.
Well, just along the lines of transportation, I also wanted to say that that the project study report for the Camino Safety Improvement was signed, and it is important to note that the estimate is the most, It is important to note that this estimate is for the most costly alternative. El Dorado County received $3.1 million in Highway Safety Improvement Program funding for the county's portion of the project. And that's for that Camino corridor where the turnoffs are to Apple Hill, and there have been so many fatalities. And fortunately, we've gotten the funding, and the project will be started soon, and hopefully it's going to alleviate a lot of that and make it a much safer part of the roadway. Okay, LAFCO, Councilman Clarici.
I lied, it's really not that exciting, but actually we did have a report from the El Dorado County Water Agency, not EID, and they talked about the current water situation, not the drought part of it, but just the current water situation, the system, how much water they have available to them when they have water available, their role and that sort of thing, and then projections out into the future. And there's actually going to be, they're doing a little dog and pony show to their member groups, which would be EID and Georgetown Water and all of that. But I suggested that at some point they start to daylight that to the public as well. Not that there's secrets or anything, but it's just really interesting information. It talks a lot about all the growth projections and the water needs. We're actually not in bad shape right now, but if the county were to continue to grow, then it would definitely have to augment their water supplies. They have several ways that they are going to pursue to do that. So actually the water situation, in terms not of the drought, but just of our ability to have enough water to accommodate our people here in future growth, is actually moving along rather smoothly. I will just go to SACOG.
I didn't call on you yet.
I thought you did.
Go ahead.
SACOG, Councilman Clarici.
We have a meeting on Thursday.
And SEDCOR would be me, and we have a meeting tomorrow. So, okay.
Madam
Can I make
Mayor.
one more-
Oh,
oh,
pardon me, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
Can I make one more report?
Yes.
I would like to report on the parade that we participated in. It was probably one of the best parades. The weather was great, and the Mountain Democrat did such a great job organizing that. And I've heard nothing but, oh, that was fantastic. That was an awesome parade. And perfect. Thank you.
Along those lines, I'd like to thank Thompson's for allowing us to use one of their beautiful new trucks that we were able to be transported through town in. So, Mark,
Hopefully the scratches will come out.
you weren't supposed to tell about that.
I look forward to getting involved with the transportation, transit, and all these LAFCO and all these other exciting organizations that are all part of the responsibility of serving on the council. And while I may have joked a little bit, I certainly admire Councilmember Thomas's enthusiasm for that relationship that you're building at the state level, because that is so important. It takes a tremendous amount of energy. It takes a tremendous amount of time. I think we can look back a few years ago before the big recession. We were lucky enough to have a good relationship with then the director of the California Transportation Commission, I think I'm saying that right, who was headquartered out of Southern California. And he took a liking to El Dorado County. Took a couple of years of patience, and then we just had tremendous success as our projects continually hit the mark. And this is countywide projects. These aren't specifically to Placerville, but they all benefit us. Anytime we go anywhere in this county, we're using a highway, and it did pay huge dividends. So I really encourage your enthusiasm, to continue with that enthusiasm, and to be patient. It will take time, but those relationships can just be hugely important. Thank you.
Okay, request for future agenda items. Any requests? City manager and staff reports.
Nothing else tonight.
Okay. Upcoming items. Items tentatively scheduled for the next regularly scheduled city council meeting on January 12th, 2016 include city council reorganization, award of bid for Broadway crosswalks, body-worn cameras reimbursement, authorization to seek public bids for sports scoreboards, award of bid for Party Big Cut Sacramento Streets, award of construction for Western Placerville interchanges, Phase 1B to Veerkamp Engineering and Construction. So it sounds like we got a lot to do come January. So at this time, I would like to wish everyone happy holidays and have wonderful new year, and we're looking forward to a progressive new year and wonderful. And Susan, once again, we say adieu, but I know I know she's going to come back here and give us some kind of advice on something. Once in a while, we will put her back to work. So thank you, Susan. Good night, everyone.